on down to BetMGM Casino and check out our newest exclusive, The Price is Right Fortune Pick. Don't miss out. Play exciting casino games based on the iconic game show, only at BetMGM. Access to The Price is Right Fortune Pick is only available at BetMGM Casino. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. 18 plus to wager. On only. Please play responsibly. If you have questions or concerns about your gambling or someone close to you, please contact Connect Ontario at 1-866-531-2600 to speak to an advisor free of charge. BetMGM operates pursuant to an operating agreement with iGaming Ontario.
Imagine two brilliant team members. Your campaigns instantly. One handles customers 24/7. On brand and always on. Meet Klaviyo's AI agents at KLAVIYO.com.
Love don't cost a thing, but weddings sure do.
I would say every single person I go to, and I'm like, so how much over budget are you right now? And I've never heard someone say they were under budget.
Matrimony's rising price tag. That's this week on Explain It to Me. Find new episodes Sundays wherever you get your podcasts.
Sometimes I just want to know what is wrong. Like, why am I so tired? Why does life feel so hard? And I've come to learn that if you address that question not to your sister or your therapist, but instead to TikTok, you can get a blessedly simple answer.
Inflammation is the root of all disease.
The root cause of almost all chronic illnesses and aging itself.
To hear some people tell it, inflammation is the cause of basically everything. Like all of the problems with our health.
Heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, even some forms of cancer.
Acne, eczema, hair loss, hormonal issues, PMS, bloating, irregular bowel movements.
You can actually look better, look younger, feel better. Everything gets better when we lower inflammation.
Are you worried? Because don't worry, there are also tips.
First is supplements. Curcumin is extremely anti-inflammatory. Cinnamon's very anti-inflammatory.
Tip number 2, consider taking a break from food.
Number 3, more fish.
Okay, and now I am confused. Because it sounds like I'm supposed to eat a lot of fish sprinkled with curcumin, which I don't actually know what that is.
The main active ingredient in turmeric is curcumin.
Okay, great.
Which on its own is not easily absorbed by your body.
Uh-oh.
Enter black pepper, specifically pepperine.
Okay, check. But then I'm also supposed to not eat food?
The ancient practice of intermittent fasting can also lower inflammation in the body.
And I'm probably also supposed to buy something?
Together, they really create this potent extract in this bottle.
At this point, I'm like, as much as I wanted a nice, simple explanation, this just can't be real. Like, inflammation cannot be the root of all diseases. But then I came across a recent big piece by my colleague at Vox, health reporter Dylan Scott. And the science in this piece, it was really surprising to me. Because it sounds like there is something to the idea that chronic inflammation may be behind many of the diseases of modern life. But it also sounds like we've demonized inflammation without pausing to ask what it's good for. It's Unexplainable. I'm Sally Helm. And today I ask Dylan Scott, what is inflammation? And what is it about the way we're living life that is healthy and natural to creep further and further until it becomes bad for us? It just, like, why am I so tired? Why does life feel so hard? And I've come to learn that if you address that question not to your sister or your therapist, but instead to TikTok, you can get a blessedly simple answer.
Inflammation is the root of all disease.
The root cause of almost all chronic illnesses and aging itself.
To hear some people tell it, inflammation is the cause of basically everything. like all of the problems with our health.
Heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, even some forms of cancer.
Acne, eczema, hair loss, hormonal issues, PMS, bloating, irregular bowel movements.
You can actually look better, look younger, feel better. Everything gets better when we lower inflammation.
Are you worried? Because don't worry, there are also tips.
First is supplements. Curcumin is extremely anti-inflammatory. Cinnamon's very anti-inflammatory.
Tip number 2, consider taking a break from food.
Number 3, more fish.
Okay, and now I am confused because it sounds like I'm supposed to eat a lot of fish sprinkled with curcumin, which I don't actually know what that is.
The main active ingredient in turmeric is curcumin,
Okay, great.
which on its own is not easily absorbed by your body.
Uh-oh.
Enter black pepper, specifically pepperine.
Okay, check. But then I'm also supposed to not eat food?
The ancient practice of intermittent fasting can also help lower inflammation in the body.
And I'm probably also supposed to buy something?
Together, they really create this potent extract in this bottle.
At this point, I'm like, as much as I wanted a nice, simple explanation, this just can't be real. Like, inflammation cannot be the root of all diseases. But then I came across a recent big piece by my colleague at Vox, health reporter Dylan Scott. And the science in this piece, it was really surprising to me. Because it sounds like there is something to the idea that chronic inflammation may be behind many of the diseases of modern life. But it also sounds like we've demonized inflammation without pausing to ask what it's good for. It's Unexplainable. I'm Sally Helm. And today I asked Dylan Scott, what is inflammation? And what is it about the way we're living life that is causing something healthy and natural to creep further and further until it becomes bad for us? Dylan Scott, hello.
Hi, Sally.
All right, Dylan. I have seen many different TikToks about inflammation and how it's perhaps causing like every single health problem in our lives. And I am curious, like, before you started looking into this, did you see those? Is that what sent you on this journey?
Absolutely. Like, I love something that's sort of at the intersection of there is like a genuine scientific question underlying all of this. Like, this is a serious topic that a lot of, well-credentialed researchers are spending their time looking into. But at the same time, it's sort of infiltrated the wellness influencer subculture that defines so much of how we talk about health these days. And it has become a catch-all culprit for a lot of different health conditions. And you've also got people out there talking about, diets or supplements or some kind of other interventions that you can take to try to reduce your quote-unquote inflammation.
Do you have any favorites or least favorites?
CMOS has become a fixation for some people, like people on TikTok.
It sounds so specific that I'm like, okay, let's do it. Like, maybe it works.
Right. Well, and people, they talk about it with such confidence. Like, that is the weird, like, allure of, a lot of this wellness content on social media is because, it's like, it's quick, it's, whatever, a 90-second video, it's digestible, and they're like, here is the elixir, the solution that will help to reduce your chronic inflammation. I think any of us would be like, well, that sounds appealing. I'd like to try that out.
But as you've already said, Dylan, like, this is not just TikTok nonsense.
Right.
Like, the thing about inflammation is that there is this real body of evidence suggesting that there's something important to think about here.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. I actually want to start here in the realm of language, because this word inflammation, it's such a powerful word, maybe even a little too powerful, because it contains this feeling of fire within it. And I just want to start by asking you, like, is that the right metaphor for inflammation?
I completely agree with you. Like it's a very evocative term that gives you this image of your body being ablaze. But I do think like fire is, I think, in some ways an appropriate metaphor for what inflammation does. But I think we have to remember that like our relationship to fire is complicated. Like fire is certainly a destructive force at times, but it can also be a cleansing force. Like fire is natural. Even like, huge forests need fire sometimes to sweep through and clean things up and allow something new to grow on top of it. And I think it's similar with inflammation, where we have a complicated relationship to it. Some level of inflammation is absolutely necessary for our bodies to function as they should, but much like fire, too much of it can start to cause serious problems.
I do feel like I need to ask a kind of basic question before we go much further here, which is, Dylan, what is inflammation?
In essence, inflammation is your immune system going into attack mode and either sending like immunity cells or other kinds of chemicals that your body can release to try to get rid of some outside invader that your body perceives as having infiltrated it and wants to get rid of to keep you healthy. And so obviously, if that outside invader is a cold virus or the influenza virus or some bacteria or something like that, like that's what we call acute inflammation. And that's, that's something that we've known about for ages. Even like ancient doctors knew that like the body goes into some kind of response when you get sick.
And it's like, okay, great, yes, get it gone. I don't want that in there.
That's for this kind of acute inflammation that we're talking about in response to a virus or a bacteria or a wound, back in the ancient times that you might have gotten on the battlefield or something, the red skin or puffy skin that can surround a wound. And like, it can be painful, it can feel hot, but at the same time, that is like your body responding to a problem and trying to fix it. And so, my sense is that like, the word developed because like it has these literal associations with heat, but I do think it's created this problem unintentionally where it just sounds like something negative. Inflammation sounds like something that you want to get rid of, and it certainly like put me in a different mind space when I learned that like, oh no, like inflammation is, it's your body repairing itself. Like that sounds positive, but it's not maybe like where your mind naturally goes when you hear the word inflammation.
And what you're saying, like cold virus, wound, we've like felt and seen that. Like I can imagine my throat being swollen if I have a cold. But the scary thing is that it sounds like there's this secret other inflammation that can happen where it's just like invisible, microscopic in your whole body. Tell me about that. Is that the bad one?
So as one of the scientists I talked to for my story put it, like every cell in your body can experience inflammation.
Oh God.
And a lot of that inflammation, to your point, is happening at the molecular level that we're never going to be able to perceive with our own eyes. But even with this invisible type of inflammation, there's a good kind and there's a bad kind. So once again, it's more complicated than you might think. There's first like what scientists call homeostatic inflammation. And this is basically like your body doing routine maintenance. Like your cells, we don't like to stop and think about this, but like, they're degrading slowly over time. Your body's stepping in all the time to make repairs.
And I'm even thinking like, I guess like lift weights or work out or something. Like
Exactly.
Well, we want that. We need that type of
Yes, exactly. Yeah. When you work out, when you lift weights, your muscles tear, they're injured basically. And part of the reason that you get stronger is because then inflammation takes hold, it repairs those muscles and it repairs them back stronger than they were before. That's the essence of strength training. So that's exactly that kind of inflammation at the invisible level, that's desirable. That's just a part of your body functioning as it's supposed to. The third kind of inflammation and this other kind of invisible inflammation is what we're concerned about. And I've come to think of it as this like chronic low-grade inflammation that is above those routine maintenance levels, that is not like sort of your body's normal homeostatic state of being. And that kind of inflammation, which can persist over a long period of time, is the kind of inflammation that scientists and physicians are worried about, that we're beginning to realize can be associated with a wide range of health problems.
All right, so I'm just recapping.
Sure.
Inflammation happens when your body goes into like defense mode, and your immune system sends blood containing like chemicals to help fight pathogens or heal a wound. And I can imagine why blood flowing to an area could lead to redness and swelling and heat and all those things. But it sounds like the concern is that being in constant defense mode like this can actually cause its own problems.
Yeah.
And that is chronic inflammation. And okay, honestly, Dylan, I can see why it is a concept that people are gravitating towards, because it's just like something in the world is leaving us in this constant state of being a little bit agitated and like a little bit overheated. And that just kind of feels true to me. But I want to dig in on whether it is true. Like what is going on here? So tell me first. Constant state of being a little bit agitated and like a little bit overheated, and that just kind of feels true to me. But I want to dig in on whether it is true. Like what is going on here? So tell me first, like what causes chronic inflammation?
So I do think that your idea of sort of our bodies being agitated is really appropriate, because there is increasingly evidence that it is modernity itself, our industrialized lifestyles, that are at least contributing to this rise in chronic low-grade inflammation that leads to chronic health problems over time. It was easily the most interesting thing that I learned in reporting out this story. I mean, if you think about human beings and our immune system, like those are, and when you to hundreds of thousands of years ago, when modern humans were developing and their immune systems were evolving, we didn't live very long. And so like any kind of problem of like, well, your inflammation is starting to slowly increase over time, like had a pretty finite endpoint. If you're not living past 40, it's not really going to become that much of a concern. And at the same time, we were living in a world where there are all kind of pathogens out there. There are viruses and bacterias, as well as like, physical risks that our body is confronting all of the time. And we didn't have any kind of medical interventions to try to address it. So basically, like our immune systems evolved for pretty short lifespans compared to how long we live today, and a really high infection risk compared to what we face today. An unfortunate byproduct of our longevity is that our bodies do experience more inflammation over time.
I mean, and that's interesting, just to pause you quickly, Dylan, because that is kind of another example of like, it sounds bad, but maybe it's good. Like in that explanation of chronic inflammation, it's like, well, it's a trade-off for a longer life. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of these things. Honestly, Sally, like all kinds of chronic health conditions are, at least in part, a byproduct of the fact that we live longer and our bodies just have more time for these problems to develop.
Okay, I'm hearing you that aging is a part of what's going on here. But can you go back to what you were saying at the beginning about the role that modernity might be playing here?
So there does seem to be this role of industrialization, pollution, changes to our food production, that is also playing a role in driving this chronic inflammation problem in addition to aging. We don't face nearly as many infection risks from like viruses or bacteria as we used to because we have modern sanitation and modern hygiene, but we are still being like exposed to all kinds of stuff like pollution and synthetic chemicals in our clothes, and our immune system's natural response to that is to kick in the inflammation and try to respond to it. But the thing is, like, it's not necessarily that there's like a virus or bacteria or this sort of like short respond to this miasma that we're living inside of, that we're exposed to all the time. And I do think it kind of not just our immune system, but it causes our immune system to go a little bit haywire.
Wow, okay, so this is getting complicated, Dylan, because I think what you're saying to me is that we already talked about those two types of kind of systemic inflammation. One helps us stay at homeostasis. It like helps us kind of just respond to the stuff that's coming at us all the time and heal and move on. And one is like chronic inflammation, like slightly elevated, but it doesn't need to be type of inflammation. And that one can cause disease, can cause all kinds of trouble. And it sounds like what you're saying to me is that like maybe in the evolutionary past, it would have been one and now it's the other. Like in the evolutionary past, this type of inflammation would have been necessary. Like we would have been fighting all these pathogens. So heating up a little would have killed the bacteria and we would have moved on. But now it's almost like we're heating up a little, but it doesn't kill the plastic piece or whatever that's floating in our body. The plastic piece or whatever is just in our body.
And you're continually being exposed to it.
Right. Yeah. So it doesn't solve a problem. It just leaves us in a sort of slightly agitated, inflamed state. And then that causes other problems. That's what's going on?
Right.
Whoa.
And I mean, I think like thinking about the food supply in particular is maybe helpful here. Like to simplify a very complicated story, like our food production has completely changed like within the last century. Like if we're talking about these long evolutionary timelines for our immune system to adjust and adapt, like we have sent a shock to the system just in like the last 100 years with the advent of, mass agriculture and things like ultra processed foods. And when you think about the ways that this kind of chronic low-grade inflammation continues to persist, like every day you're eating some kind of, maybe even despite our best efforts, you're eating some kind of new ultra-processed food, or you're eating more sugar than is naturally healthy, or maybe more fat, especially if you live in the United States. And so your body goes into this response to try to do something about it, but like, there's nothing to resolve. The next day you're gonna eat something again that's once again gonna continue to perturb your immune system and start these inflammatory responses. And so, yeah, it's like you can't escape it. Like we live inside of modernity. Like you step outside and there is like air pollution. You like look at our clothes and they have these new synthetic chemicals that do inevitably seep into our skin and into our bodies a little bit. And then especially with food and food processing, like there's just this constant exposure to things that your immune system doesn't recognize and doesn't know what to do with and thinks that it wants to get rid of, but it never can because that exposure is continual and constantly renewed. And so I hope that's sort of a helpful way of thinking about how like your body is doing something that's natural in response to these unnatural exposures, but it's sort of an endless cycle, an endless loop that continues to drive this inflammation over time and eventually does lead to tissue damage and some of the more serious health problems that we worry about.
Yes. I mean, I have heard of absolutely 1 million things that seem to be caused or worsened by inflammation. Like the range is huge. So what do we actually know about whether inflammation is contributing to all of these diseases and health problems?
Yeah, so I do think it's important to pause and say, like, this is where a lot of science is happening, like, right now.
After the break, Dylan tells me about the work that is happening to find the line where healthy, cleansing fire turns dangerous.
Reese's knows a thing or two about great combinations. Chocolate and peanut butter, obviously, but there's more than one way to Reese's. From indulgent Reese's Big Cups with caramel to crunchy Reese's Pieces and Reese's Miniatures, there's a delicious Reese's for every mood. It's the same combo you love, just with more ways to enjoy it. So, whether you're snacking, sharing, or just treating yourself, nothing else is Reese's.
I'm Midge First, two-time Indy Resale champion, championship MVP, and forward for the U.S. Women's National Team. Before I went pro, I graduated from Harvard with a degree in psychology, which comes in handy more than you think. Any athlete pursuing greatness knows there's a certain mentality you have to have. What people don't know is what that costs. In my podcast, Confessions of an Elite Athlete, I sit down with the best athletes in the world and explore the psychology, mindset, and unseen battles on the path to greatness. So take a seat and learn from the Confessions of an Elite Athlete on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Maria Sharapova, and I'm hosting a new podcast called Pretty Tough. Every week, I'm sitting down with trailblazing women at the top of their game to discuss ambition, work ethic, and the ups and downs that come on the path to achieving greatness. We'll dive into their stories and get valuable insights from top executives, actors, entrepreneurs, and other individuals who have inspired me so much in my own journey. Follow Pretty Tough wherever you get your podcasts.
It's flames on the side of my face.
All right, so Dylan Scott told me the science on this is evolving, but some serious health conditions do seem to be at least associated with chronic inflammation.
There's heart disease, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's and dementia. Those are, I think, the most studied and the most commonly cited ones. And with something like heart disease, there does seem to be a pretty clear relationship. But this picture is still coming into focus. And oftentimes there is like a question of, is inflammation causing this chronic health problem, or is inflammation a symptom of this chronic health problem that's being driven by other factors? Mechanistically, which direction are things moving? Is at times something that scientists are still in the midst of figuring out and can be murky to them even. So I want to be clear about that. But on a variety of things, there seems to be a pretty strong relationship. And I do think that's why, for totally natural reasons, people hear that and they're like, okay, what can I do to prevent that and get rid of this thing that's going to cause me all of these problems?
But it's interesting. I mean, we're back in the quagmire we've been in the whole time, because you're also saying we still don't totally know when it's a symptom of disease and when it might be tipping into this chronic inflammation that causes disease. I mean, Dylan, How can I sort that out? Like, how can I know when it becomes chronic inflammation?
Look, it's a great question, and we know at certain extremes, like if you have, an enormous amount of some kind of inflammation-related biomarker, like that probably means there's an underlying problem. But we're still in the process of establishing baselines for what's normal. There's something called immune monitoring programs at major health systems around the country. And basically what they are trying to do is establish those baselines, collecting samples from all kinds of different people, collecting them from people over time, from people, before they got sick, while they got sick, after they got sick, to try to just figure out at the most basic level, like, what is normal and what is normal for different kinds of people. Like, if you went into your primary care doctor right now and said, like, what's my inflammation? I think they would just sort of like look at you like, huh? What are you talking about? And you probably wouldn't even necessarily think to ask that, because all of this is so new in a lot of ways. But it does seem possible that we're working towards a future where, like, we figured out the right things to measure to gauge your chronic inflammation. We've figured out the right baselines against which to judge or whatever we're able to measure. And it could be that, like, in the future, you get like an inflammation score that's similar to like your blood pressure reading or your cholesterol level or your blood sugar or something like that. Like the folks who are working on those programs today, like that's the future they're envisioning and trying to, work towards, but the work is still in progress. Like we aren't there yet. Right now, a lot of, with a lot of these, and you'll see them hawked sometimes on these social media feeds of like inflammation tests or something like that. Like, yes, we have gotten to the point now where if, certain kind of proteins are associated with inflammation, but being able to interpret that information and saying like whether this is good, whether this is bad, and what we do about it, like that's much murkier as the science stands today, but trying to sharpen our understanding is the work that a lot of inflammation scientists are doing right now.
Wow, that's so interesting. So it sounds like we're kind of in like number soup world where it's like we can measure some stuff, like we can know what the proteins are and whether they're elevated, but we don't necessarily know like what that means.
No, I do think like one of the things that a scientist said to me was like, I can see a future where like measuring your inflammation is a way to get ahead of health problems that are sort of asymptomatic, at least for a long time, before they get really serious. And so that, to your point, sounds super appealing to me. If it's like we can now have this indirect measure of things that are going wrong in your body before or notice them, naturally going about your day, like that seems like the ideal for early intervention, which we know, usually leads to better outcomes.
Yeah.
But we're still in the process of refining our understanding to be able to do that.
So the hope is that this will become something almost like cholesterol or something, where you can go in, you can measure it, you can get a number, and then you can take some sane and reasonable steps to address that number. And maybe that helps you prevent future health problems.
Yes.
That sounds great.
And I should say, we do know things now that can help to improve your inflammation. It's just the most basic health advice in the world.
Dylan, cut through the fog for me. What can I actually do? Do I need to wrap a turmeric supplement in sea moss and then intermittently fast while I only eat that? What should I be doing here?
Look, it's the old standby, Sally, of eating a healthy diet, and especially eating a diet of whole foods, vegetables, fruits, things like that, exercise, stress, things like that, that can perturb your immune system.
It's funny, Dylan, that makes me think that we're causing more inflammation by stressing about inflammation.
It makes some sense. I mean, I'm not a doctor. It's this funny thing where it's I think that to the top of our conversation where it's there are these tests, there are these measures you can take to try to assess the state of your inflammation, and there's a lot of people who are willing to those two evidence about what you can understand from those measures than actual to work on this would say is appropriate. And so I do think just the whole universe of inflammation testing, of interventions or tonics like CMOS, that's what arises in this gap. We know there's something going on in the day, and people wanting an answer right now. And I think what these scientists worry about is people either trying out these approaches that are unproven and may just be pointless and not lead to anything, or obviously, God forbid, you have some kind of other health problem from whatever you're trying to do, inflammation. This is, in a way, I think one of the more underappreciated stories about modern medicine in general, which is our ability to detect things often outpaces our ability to interpret them. And that's true not just for inflammation, but for all kinds of things, because we have developed these amazing technologies that can, detect things at the cellular or subcellular level. But, you have to detect things before you can then kind of create a working understanding of what's going on with them. And that often obviously takes a lot of time and failure and refinement. And so we're in the middle of that story right now where it's people are kind of rushing in to provide answers that are beyond what science has actually learned and figured out yet.
I thought what I was doing, but another thing I was doing, and that I think those actually doing, is nurturing a very legitimate hope that chronic inflammation really does have a lot to teach us about why we sometimes feel so bad living in this very weird world that we've built. It's a mistake to think that one supplement will solve all our problems, but I think it's also a mistake to ignore the promise here. We just gotta make sure that our legitimate hope doesn't make us try to leap too quickly to the end of the story. We are actually still in the middle. And we need to stick it out so that we can really earn whatever revelations are coming at the end.
Hey Ontario, come on down to BetMGM Casino and check out our newest exclusive, The Price is Right Fortune Pick. Don't miss out. Play exciting casino games based on the iconic game show, only at BetMGM. Access to The Price is Right Fortune Pick is only available at BetMGM Casino. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. 18 plus to wager. On only. Please play responsibly. If you have questions or concerns about your gambling or someone close to you, please contact Connect Ontario at 1-866-531-2600 to speak to an advisor free of charge. BetMGM operates pursuant to an operating agreement with iGaming Ontario.
Yeah, this podcast will talk about running. Will it wreck your body? That's a good question. Is running wrecking our body or it's good for our body? And this one is related to the inflammation part of the episode. So it's coming now. It's just like technical issue here. Just bear with me. I'm working on it. Yep, it's coming. How many minutes per day do you run? And the average per week? If you want to write down in the comments so we can share, we can encourage each other to do exercise and to run. That would be a good idea. And thanks for all the people who joined this live. And hi for all of them. Yeah, it's coming. I'm just seeing loading error here, but it's coming.
Hi, I'm Wendy Zuckerman, and you're listening to Science Versus.
Here it is.
Hi, I'm Akedi Foster Keys, filling in for Wendy, and you're listening to Science Versus, the show that pits facts against 5Ks. Today on the show, running. More than 28 million people go running every week in the US, according to one survey. And the reason why we do this is presumably because it's good for us, right? And not only that, but we hear running can give you this sort of amazing feeling.
It's time to get high. Runner's high, that is.
I had ran 2 miles straight and I experienced a runner's high for the very first time. It was so freaking cool. It was like full adrenaline.
So a lot of us are excited about the benefits of running. But then we also might have this nagging voice in our ear that's kind of just like, you're gonna get hurt.
Everyone I know that starts to get into running, their body slowly starts to fall apart.
Don't run, period. I'm so tired of saying it. Your knees go, your ankles go, your hip goes.
Running is terrible for you, and anybody who runs a marathon, I think, needs mental health help.
And so today, we're running down the science here. We're gonna figure out what actually happens to our bodies when we run, what's going on with our muscles and our joints. And then we're also gonna look into runner's high and figure out like what's happening in our brains when this happens. Because when it comes to running, there's a lot of...
Their body slowly starts to fall apart.
And then there's science. That's coming up after the break. Welcome back. I'm Ekedi Foster Keys, and today we're looking at running and what it's doing to our bodies. With me today is senior producer Meryl Horn. Hey, Meryl.
Hey, Ekedi.
So, are you a runner?
I am a runner. Like, I don't run as much as I used to, but I love running. It's like my little escape, you know. I love it when I'm listening to the music and getting into the rhythm.
I actually publicly hate running, but secretly kind of love it. I don't do it as much, though, because I got hurt.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also scared right now to really get back into it since my husband got super injured from running. Like, he wasn't doing anything that crazy, but he ended up getting a stress fracture and literally, like, just couldn't walk one day because of it and ended up being on crutches for, like, 2 months.
Oh, my God.
Which I just didn't even realize could happen, so that really freaked me out.
Jeez. So that's actually where I wanted to start, with injuries. Like, how likely are you to get hurt as a runner? And I wanted to compare running with stuff that's also pretty accessible. So I looked at cycling and swimming. And there are lots of studies. They'll survey people about what they do and if they got hurt. So like one review will look at runners over a period of time to see like, okay, how much did you run? What kind of injuries did you get? Another review will look at cyclists and then swimmers.
Okay.
And when you look at these reviews side by side, what you find is that runners do get hurt more often.
They do. So it's not just in our heads. Runners actually are more likely to get injured.
Yep.
Okay. That's sort of satisfying, actually. It feels true.
Right? The actual numbers, they kind of differ across studies. So one big review that I found said that typically half of runners get hurt every year with an injury that keeps them from running.
Whoa.
For a little bit.
So about half of runners get injured every year?
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. That sounds pretty bad. And so what types of injuries were they getting?
Yeah, so it's basically the stuff that you'd expect, right? From the knee down.
Okay.
The best review that I could find on this looked at 42 studies.
Whoa.
And found that generally the most common type of injury was in the knees.
Okay.
It was about 30%. Next up, about 20% of injuries were in the lower leg. So that's between your knee and your ankle, like your shin area. And about 13% were ankle injuries.
Okay, but so generally knees on down. Bad news for that if you're a runner.
Yeah.
Do we know why this is happening? Like, is it just that like impact of the ground, like your body pounding on the pavement?
Yeah, so that's one thing that we've thought for like ages, right? That it's wear and tear. After all, running can be super hard on your body. Every time your foot hits the ground, your knees absorb more than 4 times your...
Okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like that would be good for the joints.
Right, it doesn't. But then for some people, they run and they're just fine. So I wanted to know, what puts us at risk of getting hurt while we're running? And is there anything that we can do about it? So I called up a researcher who did a big study on this. His name is Dr. Rasmus Ostergaard Nielsen. He's an associate professor in the public health department at Aarhus University in Denmark. And he's also a runner himself. But he wasn't always as keen on it as he is right now. So I heard that you got into running because you came in dead last in a local race in your hometown.
That was absolutely correct. I signed up for a road race with a friend, and I really had to fight my way through, and I came in second last in the race. The start of my running career.
So since that humbling defeat in the road race, Rasmus has pretty much made running into his science career. And last year, he published this paper that looked at why so many runners are getting knocked off their feet by this sport.
Many runners say, oh, I had this single run where I just ran too far and then my knee starts to hurt. And I thought, okay, this actually challenges the assumption that we have from clinical textbooks which would describe that overuse injuries amongst runners develop gradually over time, over weeks.
So Raz put together a study to look for patterns of when people got hurt. He and his team followed over 5,000 runners for about a year and a half and looked at how much they ran on average, and then took a look at the times where they ran more than their average distance. And also took a look at how often they got injured after those runs. And what Rasmus found was pretty wild. If you run just a little bit farther,
you increase your risk to up to 60% larger.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's quite a lot.
Yeah, so for that big increase in risk, Rasmus saw it when people upped their distance just 10 to 30% over their longest run the week before. Just making that small change, that's when people had a 60% higher